today about leveling up your game with the conference room experience. And I'm joined here with my good friend and colleague from the MacArthur Business Alliance, Brian McAuliff. And we're going to be talking a little bit, about what it means, what the experience that people get when they have different levels of conference rooms and what those or webcams and how you do conferences with Zoom and that kind of stuff, and really trying to understand why somebody would go from just their normal laptop or phone all the way up to having a really studio experience with the performances that they're putting on and that kind of stuff. So I'd like to introduce Brian and thank him for coming along, and hopefully you guys have a good experience.
Yeah, thanks, Chris. I appreciate that. And we know the world has changed in the last 2 years. This transition to virtual is not going away.
So it's good to understand the different levels that are available to us because, we'll go over and basically, so the slide I have here, we're just talking about basically that, since COVID, obviously there's been a huge surge in the number of employees working from remote locations and the need for companies to put on good presentations with their slides and actually the requirement of customers to say, hey, we want to see something good. We want to put on a good presentation. And then also to discuss the different experiences that different people have when you don't have the same technology across the board. So someone may experience the technology that's coming out. If you have a webcam, they might not be feeling it the same way as if the person who's sitting next to you, because you're doing a hybrid presentation. So we want to be able to discuss how those kind of different experiences go on as we get to the different levels. It's one of these things they call collaboration equity. When you're in a room and you're speaking to people, you have a certain feel and you have a certain, there's a certain presence there. You can look at
the body language.
Yeah, you can look into their eyes, and
you can. That presence, no matter how good the virtual experience is still not going to be the same as somebody coming in and being able to shake hands and such. How can you get closer to that?
Yeah, so that collaboration equity is: are we giving more to the people that are in the room, or in some cases maybe we're giving more to the people that are on the Zoom meetings because we're spending more time looking at them than we are on the people in the room. So it's interesting to say what kind of will get us more of that experience, that this hybrid world that we have to deliver right now. So we're going to start off. We're going to talk about level one right now. So this level one is kind of like, I got a webcam from Costco, right? That's what we got. So we go out and we go looking around, we surf the web, we go to Amazon, and we wind up with something like this. Hey, well, listen, there's a bunch of webcams out there, and those webcams, they work pretty well, but you see there's a big dichotomy. There's a $39 webcam, there's a $159 webcam, and there's pluses and minuses to that, but most people can make do for most of their presentations on that. But there is a downside to that. So what do we get when we get those $100, $200 webcams? We get a lot of bang for our buck. Pretty good quality nowadays, right? They experience they're much better than even just a few years ago, right? Starting to see 4K, things like that. You have good video improvements. They get some great kind of for individual uses and a step up from the laptop phone cams. Although we were talking about
cell phones are pretty good. The latest cell phones are pretty amazing from a capture point of view. Of course, there's not much to see there. You still want a bigger screen, but there is an awful lot that you can get done with a phone.
Right, but what we see with that, is that they're not really great for these big rooms. We see some people. We were talking about it. I did a large presentation out in front of one of our a decent sized nonprofit, and they were holding up their laptop, recording the people like this, so that and it's backwards, and they're trying to see each other, and it's like, and then they have the webcam, they're holding the webcam up like that, and they're trying to do big presentations, or you're running a big conference room, and you got this kind of skinny little webcam,
and all the little faces in there,
right? And and then people are talking, and it doesn't really pick up, so they're not great for these big room presentations, but people try to use them for that.
I think for a lot of people, at least today, but not tomorrow, that's acceptable. It was acceptable during COVID. It was acceptable to get in the basics, but it may be time for certain organizations to start saying, I need to level up to something better because I'm now on calls with other people that it's a more professional environment.
Right.
So now, we all are influenced by our neighbors, right? things got better quality here. There's better. How come that information is more tangible? And of course, we're going to reference insult based upon what we see on TV.
Right.
Sooner or later, everybody needs their own show.
Yeah, so we look at that and we say, okay, so I mean, we've kind of been there where you can you've been in a conference room and you see that little it's that little webcam up on top of the TV, and you're kind of looking down at everybody's head, and the lighting's poor, and the person all the way at the other side of the room, you really can't hear them. They're like, they got to shout, or people talk over each other because the mic stops when somebody's talking, and that kind of stuff. So yeah, I mean, they work great and they've been so much better, but they're really not designed for doing hybrid presentations.
It's like a game show. Chris, level us up.
Yeah. All right. So we're gonna. So what's next after we deal with that issue? So we're gonna basically talk about what's level 2. So the level 2 is that So my nephew works in IT, right? And so we bought this thing called an owl, right? So you know what an owl is?
Yeah.
So the owl webcam. Is this kind of neat little cool new technologies, and you'll see more of this stuff. So this owl webcam, I got one in my office, and they're kind of neat. You can kind of plug them into your laptop. They sit, I should have brought one with me. They sit right in the middle. They might do a 3D conference experience. They try to pick up people from around the room. So this is that kind of second level technology, right, that we get. And you'll see there's some other, devices that are kind of like this. You'll see
about $1,000.
Yeah, that runs about $1,000, and you'll see that there's these other kind of cool little things that you can throw in a conference room quickly. You may even get a device like we have back here behind us, which is this little polycam unit. You can just kind of pop it up there, and you'll see you're going to get a lot better stuff out of that.
Yeah, something like this, but the owls and the polycoms and those type of things will do some auto tracking. So they will have a small microphone array in them, and they will find the person speaking. They'll hunt a little bit before they find you, but they will do some automatic zooming or automatic. So the features they use is automatic zooming, but not necessarily framing.
Right.
So it's going to go to a sector of that camera where the better systems might actually come in and give you a headshot.
Right. Yeah. So you'll see that that's it's cool, and they're relatively easy to set up. They might be able to plug right into a computer. You can kind of, if you don't even need to mount them on a wall, you can put them on a table. That kind of stuff. They're easy to set up. So we'll talk about what the benefits are of those ones. Obviously, the prices are still relatively inexpensive. You can get a really good performance out of a unit like this, and now you're not talking about that webcam that's coming up from the top that's sitting over there, or maybe sitting on the side of the table, and you're getting something that's going to have all these new cool features. Noise canceling. They're going to take that background noise, maybe cancel out some of that background noise. They're really good for these huddle spaces, these small, medium-sized areas. You're going to get some array microphones, which means they'll pick up those people and they'll frame stuff. What are the problems with those units? You're running into, still really not great for big conference rooms, right? They can't pick that person up from across the hall.
No, in a larger conference room that was designed before video conferencing was the go-to. Video conferencing was something you did every once in a while. But a lot of conference rooms were built for just a meeting. And some of them especially are just all glass or sheetrock. They're tremendously reverberant, and that confuses the audio.
Yeah, you still may have some trouble with people speaking because, they might be at this side of the room and you have a long conference room. So you still have some trouble with those people speaking and maybe not picking people up.
You might have a person that's on the call that's not on a laptop in front of on their desk. They're trying to call in from the field. If you're working in a situation where you have a lot of field personnel calling in and they've got road noise going on, even if they've muted themselves, but once you start with more than like 6 to 8 people, it gets to be a problem because you're dealing with the reverberation of the room, you're dealing with other extraneous noises, in some cases HVAC systems and such, other things going on collaterally in the space.
Yeah, and we also know that, that still haven't solved the lighting issue that we see with a lot of these. They have good cameras, they pick up good light, but so many people have dark conference rooms, or you got the sun coming in from a window. All of a sudden
it really surprises me that that people still, even though they know, because you're going to see yourself, but even though you know how you look, like when you walk out of the house, if you're going to a party, you're going to dress up a little bit, but when you turn on your webcam, and you still have the window behind you and you're just a silhouette, it's kind of like you're in the witness protection program.
Yes.
But it just surprises me that so many people are not paying attention to how they look online or how they sound online. I just encourage people to say, hey, listen, go back and look at that recording separately with all the people that were on that Zoom call that was recorded and see how your mic sounds. Because it's very, very likely, and I can go through some, some high end where these were high end presentations, but the person just didn't sound
Yeah.
like themselves. They sounded like they were thin, and but, our studio audience here looks pretty good today. Everybody's got went out, looked at a mirror, took care of them. But this idea that we're just ahead and we're only looking at maybe, I'm not wearing I'm wearing my boxer shorts or something like that. That's a good, it's a bit of a joke, but the rest of that environment that you're in. The same thing with the people putting in, blurry screens behind them and such like that. Or, they've got the Palm Beach going with their backgrounds. I would expect that as we're looking at this as more of a go-to thing, that background's got to become more important.
Right. Sure.
Regardless
Yeah.
of what technology.
And the green screen backgrounds and other things, they're not that expensive.
Go
So
ahead.
some of the other things we see with these is that, they're usually plugged into a local computer, so if that computer's not running right, they still have problems. They're not designed to really be a part of the whole network as a whole. And then with the owls specifically, we call it, it's like they fly away, right? Because all of a sudden somebody wants to take it to their meeting for their chamber of commerce or those things. So then all of a sudden you need it and they're not there. So they're not really get stolen, but they get moved around a lot. They get broken, those kind of things. They're not really
The
dedicated.
cord is missing.
They're not dedicated.
I've got my thing and now I'm missing the cord.
So there's usually some dedication. I mean, sure, if you strap one to a wall, that's the case, but we see this all the time with that. Who's got the owl? Who's got this? Who's got that? The next level is, I think I might need some professional advice, right? This is where you start saying, hey, listen, I really want to put on a decent show. I want my employees to have a good experience. I want them to be able to understand what's going on. I want that system to be there all the time, functioning all the time. And that usually takes things like, different designs start to come to play, where you start seeing, we're actually looking at how is the room designed? How big is the room? What kind of equipment do you need for the room? And it usually starts taking a professional. This is kind of where someone like myself and Bri-Tech kind of start to overlap. Although, like I'm the IT guy I've done a couple conference rooms, but not like what Bri-Tech does. So
the things that you look here, like it's this illustration here, the sight lines are what's most important, right? So audio is audio that can be addressed, but people's sight lines. And of course, if a conference room table is set up the way you see here, everybody's got to turn to look at that screen. Now, if that screen is too high or too low or too big, it may end up that everybody's got to pull their chair back. We've not yet seen, and I know we have some architects in the field here, say, listen, we really need to change our conference room design so that it's not this long, thin boat table any longer. It's a table that's more got an egg shape to it or something to allow that other screen to be a part of the mix. The dilemma there, of course, is that where is the presenter? If it's all virtual, that's great. But if you're doing something like this, even that boat table arrangement turned into an oval. Gets
you get those long presentations where you got a really great camera, but that person's so far away.
Yeah.
So even if you have good audio, you might hear them well. But if they're trying to present something, or if they're holding up an object or something like that. So you start to see professional design spaces. You start to see this kind of getting integrated into the overall solutions for the companies, what programs they're using. Are they using Zoom and Teams, and which cameras work best for them, and how you actually design a room. And you're going to get, these new camera systems that have multiple microphones. They might be, so that if you have a long table, they're picking up multiple microphones. They may have some audio up in the ceiling, that you get now, but they're basic. It's something that I as an IT provider, or you're a normal IT provider, might be able to go out and research, set up for you. They're usually kind of an all-in-one. They have a dedicated PC, or they're dedicated to what that room is going to do, and they're not moving around. They start integrating with your voice over IP systems and your unified communication, which is nice. And you start taking network infrastructure into consideration. Is the actual performance of the network, because you got a PC that's going to be plugged in, you're going to be doing really high-end video. That stuff's got to work with the rest of your network. It's got to either be segmented from that network or put together, right? So what are we talking about here, though, right? The price starts going up, right? And Brian said, I put $5,000 to $15,000, and he said that's probably on the low end.
You can say, I can buy all these great parts. I've gone online. I've found these pieces. But now you have to make them work. And as soon as you step up to the better products that really will perform, they start requiring talent to make them at least be configured properly. And especially if you want it automated, you need some sort of a real intelligent design to make sure that everybody can use it. I want to walk in and I want to hit one button, so that takes some time, and then that's a labor piece. So I would say the $5,000 to $15,000 is probably right what you should budget.
So this usually, when you're at this level, it's usually not taking into the cool stuff like acoustic panels.
Yeah.
It's not taking into noise cancellation built into the ceiling. It's really not doing room automations. You're not shutting the blinds automatically and that kind of stuff, which we'll show in the next level. But you're getting a much better experience at this level. Usually, the employees know that this system's going to be there. It's going to be functional. It's going to use their teams. They're already set up in those kind of units, and the cameras and the quality of the audio and video is a step up from what we've been talking about. And that's where most companies kind of fall in. But then there's that next level, right? That next level says, my next level is, my competitor has a cool conference room and I want one. That's like you've been out to the big bank, or you've been out to, that really cool construction company that has that really cool conference room. And we start to see things like this, where, we're actually seeing some of these designs where they're using, like in this picture here, it's this professional 3D. This is a 3D rendering design of a conference room that they're putting out that has a folding table. And Brian, you could tell us a little bit about what you guys are doing.
This particular room, and it's almost every corporation wants people back in their office to some extent, especially mid-sized companies. Not everybody, but a lot of people, a lot of CEOs and management understand that we need to have a culture in our company. It's very hard for us to have a culture if everybody is always and only connected over video. So we want to bring people back into the. So there's two reasons to invest in better production quality for that. Is one is, if you have to be remote, then having good production quality and bring people into your story by having better quality production, not just the CEO sitting behind his kitchen table. Now, that's important. But if you bring people in, I've heard stories. So, well, I've brought people in, but they're sitting in their cubicle on the Zoom call. So they're in the office to make, the CEO happy, but they're not being collegiate. And I don't know about everybody in our audience, but holding on to people, especially that young, smart group of people that are coming up, the story is like, if all it's going to change in my life, I think the older generations like the fact that it's remote, but the younger generations are looking at, hey, listen, I'm stuck now during COVID. My college has been in my kitchen on my laptop. If you tell me that my next career starting is going to be, the only thing that's going to change is what's on my screen, that's not enough for me.
Yeah.
That's not enough. And if you want the best talent, you're going to need to rearrange your office space and make a clubhouse of some sort with gathering spaces, with places where that young, energetic group want to be.
But I would also say that on top of that, if you do have these remote people, you want to be able to engage them too, yes. And that's what this does. It allows them to have this more engaging experience. So what are we talking about here? We're talking about what you see, professional design and installation. I mean, this is an architect building a room ahead of time with planning, with these cool little acoustic tiles, measuring the audio, these panels that actually might, actually resend the audio to the other side of the room. It's a really big conference room, so we're talking on this side, and they're actually boosting it on the other side. You're getting really the highest quality equipment. Full integrations. I mean, this is where you push a button and the shades go down, and the lights go, the lights go down to the right levels, and you're really getting this kind of really cool collaborative solution, completely customizable. So for your look and feel and your aesthetics that you like, you're kind of building that stuff around there. You're getting lighting controls and curtains and all that kind of cool stuff, right? So obviously, what's the price on stuff like that? I mean, they can go $30,000, $100,000, $200,000 plus for this kind of stuff, and sometimes there's a return on that investment. Yeah, you're not ordering from Amazon. Usually, they're part of the construction. They're part of the planning that goes on. They require professional installation and maintenance. You're talking about really high-end level programming, Crestron or Symbian or these other things that are out there. They can be expensive to repair. Obviously, if the equipment is bad, and they have to get them from manufacturers, and they generally, if you got the newest, coolest technology, and then the technology changes, and you always want the newest, coolest technology, you got to buy that. When you're in a room that's designed well, the experience is good. I mean, if there's some a couple of my friends that have some large conference rooms, out in Nassau, and these experiences, like you could be 25 feet away from the person and you hear them like you're sitting next to them because of the way the acoustics were designed, and the people in the other side of the room, they almost, that are not in the room with you, they feel like they're a part of that room. So when it's done really well, it does give
It's
you
like
an
going to
experience.
a fine restaurant, right? If you go, the interior is and the ambiance of the space is almost as important
Yeah.
as the service, as the food.
So what's the next level, right? The next level is we need to put on a show. We want to do something like this. We want to do podcasts. We want to razzle dazzle them. What do you do when you want to get to that level, and you want to actually have some kind of a studio out there, because that's the next level, whether it's in house or rented.
Yeah,
You
so
know,
this gives you an idea. This is a conference area with a studio annex, and there are multiple monitors, and just like we have here, there are programmable lighting and programmable cameras that are in the ceiling that allow the room to be automated. We're out here on Long Island. How many people want to invest in a studio in their own space? There's two levels to that. I think you'll cover that in the next
Yeah,
slide.
sure.
One is, the hardware. So the hardware costs X amount of dollars. But, I use this very often. If I gave you Da Vinci's paintbrush, I doubt you could, paint the Sixtine Chapel. You just couldn't, it's not the brush. So you got to buy the hardware. The second part, you have to invest in.
Sure.
You can't just have it professionally installed. You have to put people on your team
Yeah.
that are able to make it work. Because things like sliding in graphics and making that really polished solution takes an expert.
We found that even in our office, because we had set up like this kind of mini studio. I bought the lighting stuff for it. I bought a little mic. I bought all that kind of stuff. But then it was like, well, I need Andrea, my assistant, to hold the camera, and she's like, well, but then she's got to go, and then who's going to edit it at the end, and who's going to put a Chiron on it or make cool flashing, and we didn't have all that, but we wanted it to be professional, but it kind of just wasn't. It was okay, but it wasn't, we didn't put the whole thing together, and then somebody's walking by eating food, or somebody's doing that because we don't have a dedicated space. But what do you get when you do that? When you start to get these broadcast quality audio videos, but you start having maybe a production staff or people that help you out doing editing and post-production and that kind of stuff. And this can be rented. Sometimes they can be in-house. If you have the expertise, you can build this in there, that huge professional look and feel. And this is really those people that are looking to do live events, an event like this or a podcast, corporate events, fundraisers, conferences. These things can be done in these spaces now that whether you try to do it yourself, usually on a smaller scale with a podcast or something like that, you might have a little room for that. But if you're trying to do it bigger, then there's obviously spaces around for that that get rented and put on really quality productions with good lighting and good microphones and space for people and interaction.
Whether you're doing a CEO presentation, your annual business meeting, it might be worthwhile to go to a studio and get that one polished thing. Doing a product launch might be a great opportunity, even if that program that you're developing is not for your client, it's for your employees, or if you're a nonprofit, it's for your stakeholders. Having that one piece. What's the advantage of doing something in a high quality studio and paying a few dollars more, or getting your marketing firm involved in putting together a presentation? Is it's digital and it's repeatable. So if you say, listen, I'm going to do something and I'm going to let it, I can tell you that if you go online, you're going to see lots of corporations with lots of videos that were either instructional or how-tos and such. And those videos have been up for years and they're still valuable. So when you go and do make that step to level 5, if you will, first thing, if you're thinking of building a studio, I'd say before you think of building your own studio, go use one. There are probably 5 or 10 studios on Long Island that have different levels. Go use one, get some professional stuff done, get a handle on how much effort that is. But you create a video for your company that's, or for whatever your mission is, and that video becomes something that's really we know that's where it's at, right?
If that's all you got, and I think one of the things we learned is that no matter which level you're at, you could up your game a little bit.
Yeah.
Better lighting, better audio, better positioning of cameras, things like that. At level 1 or at level 5, there's a little bit of a way to make these presentations more enjoyable, more presentable, And we should start thinking about that because I mean we were just talking about it, like the silhouette of that background. It's not acceptable anymore, unfortunately. You know, people
No,
are really looking for. They want to be able to see. If we're going to see people's faces, we might as well see them as best as we can.